Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of NUS Economic Society's newest initiative, Econs Career 101. This series is catered to provide economic students with insight into career pathways that you might be considering upon graduation. We will bring to you industry experts and economics alumni from various sectors to share more about their valuable experience and answer the questions that you may have about these industries. So I'm just going to intro myself first. Hi, I'm Matthew. I'm the host for this series. I'm currently a year 2 undergraduate doing economics and statistics. And yeah, you may see me around in school. So hopefully if you watch this podcast, you can say hi, you can, drop a comment or something as well. So so we would like to thank all of you for submitting your questions on our Instagram page. So especially regarding today's industry of interest, and do continue to look out for them as we update our Instagram, and we're going to ask you for more questions that you wish to hear from. Yeah. So we hope this series that will help you broaden your industry perspectives and keep you better informed about your upcoming job and internship search. All right. So today we'll be touching base on the consultancy field, and we are very grateful to have Cheng Wei, who is an economic and strategic consultant at Alphabeta, to share more about this field. So welcome, Cheng Wei. Hello, Cheng Wei.
Hi everyone. Great to meet all of you.
Yes.
I'm Cheng Wei.
Yeah. All right. So Cheng Wei, we know that you are an ex-NUS Econs alumnus as well. So maybe you want to share what year were you in, what you did in school, and about this kind of experiences.
Yeah. Thanks, Melvin. I'm Cheng Wei once again, and then great to meet all of you. And I graduated from NUS back in 2016 with a social science degree in economics. So preparing for this podcast made me think of many fond memories as I look back. Right, I really enjoyed my university years, being active in the Economic Society as well, back in 2013, 2012, 2014, and being involved in key events like the National Economics and Financial Management Quiz. Right, I think now it's renamed, but I guess the legacy continue on, and also many of this freshman orientation camp. And so glad to be here, and happy to answer all these questions.
Yeah, all right. Maybe before we delve into the questions, what are your favorite NUS moments that you look back on very fondly of?
Yeah, I think back then there were a lot more social events where we can interact with people, get to know people, right? Pre-COVID days. So I think those are really valuable events where we get to know the broader cohort. And I guess university is just really more about just study alone, right? And I guess having that cohort kind of spirit really helps one as they go through the university years. So I think those are some of the fond memories. And definitely many of the events that we organize as well. The freshman orientation camp, the NEFMQ quizzes, and so on.
I see. That's great to hear. So do you want to, if any professors are looking out for this podcast, do you want to give a shout out to them, or any professors that you really want to thank for this, for your undergraduate studies?
Yeah, so I think profs, I think in the final year I took development economics. So yeah, Prof Nina Guyong, I think big shout out to you. And also I think there's a prof, Emily Beam, that also just has left for the US. But she really really taught us population economics and application as well. I think those are very, very fond modules that we still remember to this day.
Right. That's great. Well, hopefully next time when we graduate, we also can look back all these days. And I think school and university is work and university is very, very different, right? All right. So let us start maybe going through what you do on your regular day basis. So what is a consultancy and how is economics relevant in that sense?
Right. So I think before that, let me introduce where I am now. So I'm currently a senior manager with Alphabeta. So we are strategy and economic consultancy firm based in Singapore, and we specialize in a deep, insightful analysis across 3 main pillars. So things like technology and the future of works, sustainability, as well as economic development and growth. And since last year, Alphabeta, we have joined Access Partnership, which is a global technology consultancy with headquarters in the United Kingdom. So to answer your question, I think consulting is a very dynamic industry, right? Where we get to really interact with many different people and different organizations that can make an impact. So I think the field is really varied, right? So you really can go through the kind of consultancy field that you're in. It could be economic, it could be strategy, it could be management. But really what we're trying to solve is some of the key exam questions that can get people excited, that are some of the world's most pertinent questions. and we try to look into some of this. And at Alphabeta, we look into some of the key questions, such as what is the kind of economic price of digital transformation? How do people get there, right? What do you need? What kind of enablers do you need to continue to also look out for? Things like digital skills, digital trade, right? In the sustainability field, it's such a big, broad area, right? Some of the key questions, it could be, how do we manage plastic waste better, right? In the Southeast Asia region, how do we ensure that deforestation get reduced? And what are some of the enablers that we can put in place? Or even in terms of economic development, right? So a big thing, of course, is the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic. And we can see how we can help different countries and economies recover from the COVID-19 pandemic through technology, through better green recovery plans, etc. So I think the field is really, really rich. And and I don't do it justice just in this 2 minutes, but hopefully everybody get a sense of an idea of it.
I think what's exciting as well is that we learn some of it in our academic studies. We learn the theoretical aspect. So actually, how do you think the economics degree in NUS has actually prepared you for what you're actually doing now?
Right. Definitely, I think the NUS degree has really taught us different kind of skills that we can bring over to the consulting world, right? Things like looking critically at a certain policy, right? And analyzing the policy to derive what kind of implication it has, right? Things like drilling in the kind of basic economic concepts like GDP, like labor productivity. This comes second nature to a lot of things in the work that we do. There are other tools as well, right? Your statistical tools, your input-output tables, your correlation analysis. I think those are also very important, right, in the day-to-day kind of operation of a firm, or especially an economic consulting firm, right? So I think really it helps you ground the different areas, which we might not find it useful during our undergraduate days, but after that, when we look back, and a certain project require us to think deeper into input-output tables, into multipliers, we look back and draw upon the knowledge that we have.
That's great. So as you mentioned that, there are some skills that you learn in NUS, but how about skills that you learn that, you didn't learn in uni, like anything that is important for maybe our listeners to, gear ourselves, maybe anything that we can self-learn, or any tips that we can, better prepare for a job in consultancy per se? Right.
So definitely, I think there's always room for improvement, right? And as you go along, you start to see what you do not know, right? And then I think there's some things like communication, right? I think in the consulting field, what you really need to do is how to communicate concisely, effectively, powerfully as well, with very short, punchy messages. So I think really, I think NUS is doing a good job over the years to include more of these modules. But back at my time, perhaps it's not too much, right? But really is to have all these different tools to prepare students to do that. Another big area is as well is sort of looking creatively at problem and how do you break it down into smaller chunks, right? So it's a kind of creative problem solving. How do you dissect a big issue? And I think along the way, as hopefully, I think nowadays consulting cases has been more popular in the university undergrad life, right? Where people take part in consulting clubs and different consulting case with friends. And that's where you really drill some of these concepts where how do you take a big problem which you might not have even heard of, the kind of industry, the kind of sector, the kind of topic, but how do we use a very systematic framework to break it down? I think those are also very valuable skills. And I think the third thing that I just want to point out is just that general curiosity for things in general, right? In general knowledge, politics, economic trends, etc., right? Things that it goes around the region and beyond, right? Just reading the papers, reading the headlines, right? Having that sense of it, right? Because all these are also very crucial in consulting projects where these are the basis of foundation where we draw upon some of this knowledge as well.
That's great. And I think as you mentioned, I think a lot of our undergraduates are actually being exposed to consulting, as you said, like the CCAs and everything. So how do you find, do you think that these consulting firms, something like your job is actually suitable for fresh graduates? And if so, what are some what are some aspects in terms of culture, learning curve that they should expect, because I think consulting firm is I would say newish to an economics undergraduate per se, because I don't think we learn it in school what it actually is. So maybe you can share about how was that experience for you and any tips and tricks that people can expect. Yeah.
I think great. I think there are a few thoughts on my head, right? So one is definitely is just be prepared that consulting is dynamic. It changes with the changes along the way and changes over the months. I think just to give you an example, one in the next 2 weeks, you can be doing a project on manufacturing, right? Looking into the manufacturing sector in Australia. And then in the next 6 months to a year, you look into the plastic waste issue in Southeast Asia, right? So already one, the topic really diverse and differs from one another. And two, the kind of skill sets also differs, right? Perhaps one, you require a bit more of your data analysis, right? Cleaning of surveys, cleaning of interviews. Another one, you look more into qualitative. How do you put together a qualitative set of approach to define your problem, right? Another one you could be doing on report writing, right? So I think really just jumping from different fields, jumping from different skill sets, I think just it's something that anybody who's thinking of joining a consultancy firm should expect, right? And should be comfortable with, right? It might, I think for some people who walk through the halls of consulting firms and they feel that they are pushed to the edge, right? Some of them turn out stronger, but some of them feel that it's not for me, right? I just don't like this very, very dynamic, very, very ever-changing kind of landscape, right? Just to put it out there. And I think consulting is a good starting point for many graduates, right? Because it trains up a range of very transferable skill sets, right? Things like communication, things like problem solving, things like client management. I think all these are important wherever you go after that, right? Or even stay on the consulting industry, right? And also help you build up a network, right, of colleagues who are very diverse, who are very smart as well, but also with clients as well, and people who you can keep in touch. And then to put it out there, a lot of times in the consulting industry, you're quite privileged, right? You get to meet a lot of C-suite people, a lot of policymakers who have the ability to impact the world in some ways, or impact industries, or impact a decision in some ways, right? So being able to be feeling part of that solution at the end of the day, right, to solve certain things, I think you also bring about very fulfilling kind of meaning to a career, right? So I think those are some things to bear in mind, that what one can be expecting from this career. And of course, just to be honest, the learning curve will be steep, right? There will be some late nights, right? There will be very short trips overseas to do workshops, right? There will be some times where you'll be thinking of how to crack a case over the weekends, right? So all these things comes along with this career as well, right? So just to be put out a balanced kind of a perspective out there.
I see. So actually, since you mentioned about the steep learning curve, right? What was the toughest part of your job actually? Like maybe like a moment that you felt like, oh, this is actually very, very tough.
Right. So I think one of it is really to see how we can break a big problem into smaller chunks, right? And a lot of times, especially in Alphabeta, where we try to put in economic models where we think that should exist but don't exist, right? And how do you put it together? And normally it's the first of its kind, right? And you take, for example, plastic waste, right, or packaging waste, which I hold many fond memories about, right? And then I'm doing quite a lot of projects in this field, right? One of these areas, people have been talking about plastic waste for a long, long time, right? Years, right? But without robust data, without a robust fact base, people can go on and on and on, right? Without coming out with very credible solutions or solutions that will move the needle. So I think one of the toughest challenge in Alphabeta, or if I can extend it across the consulting industry, is coming out with methodologies, coming out with an approach to how do you slice a big problem into a sort of smaller chunks, so that you can address each one and put together and join the dots among all this analysis, connect the dots, and to come up with a very coherent and also impactful narrative and story, right? So the whole end-to-end, I think is quite challenging, right? And it's quite exciting as well. But at the end of the day, when you look back and say, yes, I managed to connect everything, I managed to join the dots, I managed to draw out insights from just chunks and chunks of data. And I think those are the fulfilling part as well, even though it could be challenging.
I think that sounds, I think at the end of the day, it sounds very fulfilling for you, right? I think like managed to solve the issue or managed to improve on that idea. So, okay, moving on to the next question. I think this is something that I think a lot of people want to know. So, do you think that your university matters very heavily in getting into and doing well in the consulting industry? And are there actually any advantages and preferences towards more technical degrees like computer science, business analytics, statistics, etc.? Yeah.
Right. So I guess, yes, right, core skills from a degree is important, right? An economics degree is important, as one is expected to learn sort of fundamental concepts and tools, right? Especially for economic consultancy like Alphabeta. And yes, there will be additional sort of advantages from CS or business analytics kind of a degree. By end of the day, we're really looking for very core skills, right? And anybody can have this core skills, right? It could be a chemistry major, it could be a law major, right? But if somebody who is really interested in the topics that we cover, right? Somebody who is generally curious about things that's happening in the world, right? How things work, how things transpire each other, what's key trends is out there, have the kind of skill sets that we are targeting: problem solving, communication, client management. All these things are doesn't just restrict to a major, and as long as they have all these sort of skill sets, and they have sort of a just their willingness to learn and all these things, I think this any major it's not restricted just to economic major. And I think this will be tested through our sort of application process as well, right? When we put them through a time essay, when we put them through a consulting case interview, some of these skill sets, even though they may not be from the sort of narrowed down majors that we're looking at, right, this will tend to come out as well.
All right. Yeah. All right. I think now we can move on to the Q&A from actually our economic students that I've been asked on Instagram. So I think the first question we'd like to ask is, to you, what is the most important 3 skills when working in economics consulting? Maybe we can summarize it, because I think you mentioned quite a bit earlier, right? Yeah.
3 skills.
Yes,
right?
3 skills.
Right. Okay. Number 1, problem solving, right? Just really thinking of creative ways to break down a big problem, right? Second one is sort of client management, right? Or people management, right? How do you work in teams? How do you work across with much more senior kind of stakeholders, right? With a diverse group of people from academia, from industries, from governments, right? So people management. And the third thing is communication, right? How do you put forth a concise message that people want to listen, right? And people will be able to draw out the insights from. So I think I will just summarize with these 3 sort of skill sets.
All right. The next question is, what is a typical day in your life in the office like?
So as cliche as it sounds, right? The truth is there's no typical day, right? So in the consulting industry and Alphabeta, there are many variables that will kind of affect what you do on a day-to-day basis, right? And I'll just give you a few examples, right? So one is the nature of project, which I touched upon briefly just now, right? You could be looking into seafood conservation, right? You could be looking into alternative proteins, right? Such as your plant-based food, right? So the nature of projects also affect what you do on a day-to-day basis. The second one is sort of the phase of the project, right? If you're at the early stage, you're more of the sculpting, more of the putting together an approach, more of thinking through what is your key exam question that you really want to solve. When you go down to the midstream of the project, it's more of data collection, analyzing the data, right? It could be consumer surveys, etc. And finally, to the final tail end of the project, is the report writing, is the preparing for launch, is the writing opinion papers, etc. So I think really that's the second sort of variable that adjusts what you do on a day-to-day basis. And the final one is your work stream, right? Your individual kind of task that you oversee, right? And in consulting, we often work in teams, and so everybody looks after their own tasks. And during a same phase of the project, one person could be running surveys, right? So conducting surveys, cleaning the surveys. Another person could be doing interviews, right? Finding the right person to interview, skillfully going through an interview to elicit the useful information, and etc. Right? So I think that really just hopefully gives you an idea that life here in consulting is very dynamic, right? Things changes, right? And on top of all these things, sometimes you are involved in business development, right? Writing proposals, right? Talking to clients to see what they're thinking about. Sometimes they're sitting on a rich data, but they don't know how to use it or utilize it. So I think that's one of this area as well. Other aspect could be firm building processes, such as recruitment talks, etc., and all these things. So I think really sort of varied and diverse.
I think following up to the question, I think a lot of people want to know this. What is your most favorite or memorable project or client that you have worked with?
Right. So I think there are too many memorable ones over the years. One of our work will be with Food Industry Asia. So it's a public project, so I can share. You can find it on our website. So they are leading a regional food and beverage association of the major brands, right? Where we look into the plastic waste landscape in the Southeast Asian region back in 2018. So back then, there were already quite a few plastic waste management efforts in the space, but there was a lack of coordination among initiatives. There's a lack of robust fact-base to guide actions. Like what I said earlier, without a fact-base, sometimes there's a lack of credible kind of solution. So we look into specific kind of ways, areas by country, and the kind of current initiative, what is being done by location, by types, and the kind of opportunities to really create the most impact. And this granular insights, I think, is sort of the first of its kind in the region at that time, has helped policymakers and organizations review their focus area and to divert resources to opportunities that make the most sense, right? And then from that first project on plastic waste in 2018, I've been on many other related projects with multilaterals, with investors, with industry and governments, really to connect the dots and to create impact to see how we can move this plastic waste discussion much further down the line. So I think that was one of the many memorable sort of projects that I've been on.
Okay, I think this is a personal question. I think my friends have asked me to ask you, which is more important, CAP or internship experiences?
CAP or internship experience?
Yes.
Both are important. I think CAP, so we look at both when we review a resume, right? So when we look at both, and then of course, if somebody's CAP is not what we have put out there, which is the second upper and above, right? We'll look into specific modules and grades by your transcript and to see where's your strength and where's your weakness, right? And then sometimes we see that when you look at very technical kind of core economics or econometrics, sometimes there's a sort of a different story to tell, right? Somebody could be very strong in certain core parts of economics, some not, right? So I think we will dive a bit deeper in the transcript, but that CAP tells us at least an overall assessment of how one does well in school, right? And then the second thing that we look at is also the experiences, right? And it of course depends on what role you are applying for, right? We have internships, we have business analysts. For those who are more senior, who is in a sort of 2 or 3 years in the job, we have managers as well, where we look into the kind of experience that they have. So internship, perhaps you really just want to try consulting in general, right? You just want to come into the field to understand how it is. And then usually we'll have a sort of essay and just a first round of a chat to find out your interests and why are you considering Alphabeta, right? We'll talk about some of the key topics that gets you excited. And I think from that sort of short interactions, we're able to find out whether that person is really interested, right? Or just apply. I think to your point, both are important. I won't deny that, those are screening sort of criteria, but I think we'll look a little bit deeper and understand sort of what is really happening for this individual.
All right, and then maybe one last question. Then maybe we can start closing up for this episode. So what advice would you give to all the students right now looking to explore their career options?
Right, I think you will hear many advice. So I'll just give one. You'll be working for a very, very, very long time, right? So do take the time to really think through what really excites you. Right? Things like what will still make you excited, interested to get to work on a Monday, right? So what are some areas that you are truly passionate about? And what would be a job that you'll be excited to share about others? I think those are some of the sort of, I think, I wouldn't say milestones, but some of these things that I think will be quite telling of what you look for in a career, what you look for in a day-to-day job. And if you're willing to share even your mom, right, your dad, about what you do on a day-to-day basis, I think that's a good step on a career that you might enjoy for a long time.
All right. So thank you, Cheng Wei, for your advice. And maybe do you want to leave some final words for our listeners?
Right. So thank you for inviting me for this session. I think I truly enjoyed myself, really just thinking through about the past and also just sharing some advice, right? I think definitely won't be everything, but I think hopefully it gets you thinking about the consulting industry. And here we are expanding our team here at Alphabeta and also our parent consultancy firm, Access Partnership. So do drop by our websites to see if any role interests you. And take a look at some of our projects. So we have a wide range of projects across our 3 pillars that we talked about just now: technology and the future of work, sustainability, economic development and growth. And feel free to contact any of us, myself or my team, if you are interested in particular projects that gets you excited. And we'll also be having an NUS recruitment talk on the 23rd of March. 24th of March, 12 noon. So do take a look at your inbox for more details, and we hope to see you there.
All right. Thank you, Cheng Wei, for your time today. I think all of us have learned quite a bit on your experiences and especially your advice for our students. So that's all for the consultancy episode. So hopefully we will see everyone soon. And yeah, so stay tuned to our Instagram. If you have any questions or any industries that you'd like to see, do feel free to drop us a DM. Till then, we will see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.